The Super Nintendo has had its fair share of side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and here's one of them, Captain Commando. This is another example of Capcom bringing an arcade game to Nintendo's 16-bit console. I like to kick off my reviews by briefly mentioning the game's story, but on this occasion I'm stumped. To say that the game's fit on plot would be an understatement. It's practically anorexic. There's no introductory text when the game boots up, and no story sequences in between levels. Granted, this is a fighting game, not an RPG, so I'm not expecting a tale of Shakespearean proportions, but some explanation as to why the player's walking along smacking hoodlums would have been nice. Never mind, I'll stop quibbling about the minor details. Let's just assume that the heroic commando team is on a mission to save the world from doom. Players get to choose from a roster of 4 playable characters. The title character, Captain Commando, is joined by Ninja Commando, and then things start to get very strange. Wrapped up in bandages is Mac, the Mummy Commando. That in itself is pretty weird, but the game has to reach a new level of zaniness by declaring that he is in fact a blade-wielding alien. The 4th and final member of the team is Baby Commando, a super-intelligent toddler who rides on top of a robotic body. He's smart enough to operate heavy machinery, but is still to master potty training. This is your typical beat-em-up, easy to pick up and play. 1 or 2 players walk right, thrashing any thugs who get in their way until they reach the end of level boss. Bashing the attack button will unleash a combo of punches and kicks. Players can also grapple enemies to score a few free hits or perform a throw. Pretty standard stuff for this type of game. There's very little to differentiate between the 4 characters aside from their looks. They do, however, each have a unique special move, such as the Mummy's spinning tornado or Captain Commando's electric attack. Unfortunately, there are only a few occasions in which you will take advantage of these specials, as they drain the character's life bar. The game spans 9 levels, which may sound lengthy, but trust me, it isn't. On the most part, each stage can be beaten by a solo player in under 5 minutes. Each level has its own theme, starting with a fight on the city streets and ending with a battle in outer space. In between all that are trips to the museum, aquarium, and circus. Are these guys trying to save mankind, or are they just checking out the tourist sites and smacking anyone in the vicinity? Your guess is as good as mine. Stage 5 is the shortest stage in the entire game, but it's also the most original one. Instead of walking, the player rides on a pink surfboard as he chases a mad scientist who showed up at the end of the previous level. The player isn't the only surfer cruising along the sea though. There's enemies to contend with and power-ups to collect. Just don't ask how a violin, bowl of bananas, or teddy bear managed to end up on a surfboard. After passing the first part, you have to beat up the runaway doctor within 40 seconds. Not a difficult task, just hug the right-hand side of the screen and punch when he appears. Just watch out for the bombs he throws. Graphically speaking, this isn't an ugly game, but it's nothing special to look at either. In a similar vein, the sound effects and music aren't horrible, but are instantly forgettable. The game oozes mediocrity. I don't dislike Captain Commando, but there are certain aspects to it which lack polish. For a start, the whole thing moves along sluggishly. Many fighting games generate excitement by flooding the screen with enemies and forcing the player to react quickly. This isn't the case here, due to the slow pace in which characters move and attack. You get all the time in the world to ponder what to do when an enemy turns up, which makes things easier than it should be. Something I expect from a good beat-em-up is a good selection of enemies with their own fighting styles. Initially, it looks like the enemies you encounter vary from level to level, but by the time you reach the latter part of the game, you'll get tired of seeing the same old hooded wimps, women with tasers, and ninjas. They don't even bother to change the enemy names. You will soon lose count of how many guys named Wookie and Skip you have knocked out. After a while, I started to wonder why the gang you're fighting has so many fat guys who spit out flames. How did they get obese anyway? If you chow down too much food, you'll get overweight. But I never knew that a fire-eating diet contained so many calories. One thing which disappointed me was the lack of weapons which the game has. During your travels, you'll only be able to collect a few weapons, and they are pretty ineffective. For example, the excitement I felt at picking up a bazooka was short-lived, as the weapon disappeared after 3 measly shots. It's stupid to include weapons in a game if they are ultra rare and not worth using. Almost as stupid as calling the final boss Scumocide. Either something went wrong during the translation of his name, or Scum's parents were trying to win the prize for the worst baby name ever. It surpasses the choices which certain celebrities curse their kids with. You know the ones I mean. The ones who call their kids Apple or Satchel. I'm awarding Captain Commando a 6 out of 10. It's alright if you're a fan of these type of games, but it's lacking that extra sparkle which makes titles like Double Dragon, Final Fight, or Streets of Rage popular to this day. Perhaps it's suffering from having to leave out some content during the process of squeezing an arcade game into a console cartridge. Captain Commando isn't a bad game, but if you decide to give it a go, don't set your expectations too high. It's devoid of original ideas, and I can't imagine that many players would want to play it again after completing it. Thank you for watching, and take care.